Here's what you get with this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
And that's kind of counterintuitive because that's what we're taught from a young age, right? You just work harder and good things will flow. But if you're successful and you start to build to a certain point, if you don't have solid systems in place, your problems just start to multiply just from volume alone.
The Nice Guys on Business podcast. These go to 11. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
John Sheridan is an investor, an advisor, an international best-selling author and business coach with over 30 years of experience coaching owners of entrepreneurial businesses. He's the founder of Sheridan Business Enterprises and created the 9 Systems Framework. Sheridan shares his practical knowledge along with his passion for business and wrote The Perfect Business, Master the 9 Systems to Get Control, Work Less, and Double Your Profit. And who in our community would not want to do all of those things? Again, he's an international best-selling author, targeted business owners who are already successful but are overworked. His systematic approach will help owners and executives manage their companies while giving them the freedom and lifestyle they deserve. Welcome, John, to the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Happy to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you today.
Thanks, John. And I part of what your message is, it's fascinating to me because I've been in business for 30 years on my own and more recently in this online space for the past 5 years. And although I rarely have to leave my home to do my business, I've never really worked harder in my entire life. And that is one of my biggest challenges. How do I start making more money while working less or working smarter? I mean, I guess that's the catchphrase. So what made you think about this as a plan and then develop a framework around helping people out of that stuck spot where they are?
Well, it comes from helping a lot of business owners who have either plateaued or hit a wall or have become overwhelmed or frustrated because they've been really successful up to a certain point. They want more, or they find themselves wanting less in terms of hours on the job. And when I started working with them, I found that there are some common themes that arose, and a lot of it has to do with how they approach their work, how they approach the systems in their business, and how they can create leverage for themselves. So that's the genesis of the framework. I originally was really impressed as a young man with the company Walmart. When I was a young man, they were the Google of their day, and I read Sam Walton's book. And I was, running my own business, and I wanted to see what was it that they did that was so incredible. And the conclusion I came away with was they did a lot of things right. And, all business owners are faced with this challenge of what do I do next? Because there's so many things to balance to make it right. And so that's how I came up with the framework to sort of break things down and give people a way to think about how to go about this, what they see as a huge task of systemizing their business.
No, and I appreciate that. And I love the idea. I love making and creating great systems that help my business run. And I think one of the challenging areas for me is, and I find myself in this position quite often over the last 30 years and a handful of businesses later, is that I get to a point on my own where I can really, gravitate towards that level. Let's say that level is for some people, for me, whoever it is, let's say that's $100,000. You want to break through that 5-figure ceiling and get to that 6-figure spot, and you want to go beyond that. And oftentimes I find myself, whenever I get to that plateau, I'm in my own way. It's not that my business can't handle it. It's that for some reason, I'm so stuck in the business rather than on the business. So maybe you can share with our community, what are some of the symptoms that someone that is going through what they're going through sees or feels in order to know, hey, maybe this is a time that I really need to listen to John?
Sure. It's when you start getting frustrated with people not pulling their weight or not doing what you think they should be doing on your team. Or when you find yourself on that roller coaster of sell because you've run out of work. And then it's all of a sudden make because you have to deliver on everything you've sold. And then, you find out once again that, here goes the roller coaster again. I got to sell.
Right.
So if you're on that roller coaster, you're feeling that the team is not pulling their weight. Or if you got a lack of predictability in general in the operations, where you find yourself putting out fires too much and making mistakes that, maybe it's not the first time you've made them, maybe it's second or third time, but they still happen. Those are the kinds of things that cause people to lose confidence and get frustrated.
I think my partner and I talk a lot about staying in your zone of genius. And, for me, selling and business building and relationship building are part of my zone of genius. His is in the spreadsheets and operations. And we have a director of operations and team members that really deal in the stuff on the daily activities. How much is staying in your zone of genius something that you help your clients focus on, or maybe it goes beyond that or in a completely different direction?
Well, if you think about what got you to where you are, you've probably become really good at selling. You're probably really good at delivering what it is that you do, the actual being the technician part of things.
Hmm.
And you got really good at multitasking and doing lots of different things. And that works right up to a certain point.
Right.
And so, that may be your zone of genius. It may also be a comfort zone. And even though it may seem like you're beating your head against the wall, even that can be like a comfort zone to some people. So those are some of the things that you have to let go of. And instead, you have to replace those skills with new ones. Things like learning how to manage other people, or planning, or creating systems so that you get some leverage in your business. In other words, moving away from the more reactive approach and toward a more proactive approach, because those are the kinds of things that you need to adapt and learn if you're going to take your business beyond just a one person shop and into something bigger and better.
So when did you realize that you had something that was not only doable from a business owner's perspective, meaning that you could go in and teach anybody how to do this, and then make the transition to, I'm going to write a book and create an environment where anybody that's picking up this book, if they have the wherewithal, they can take away from the book some of the information and actually instill it in their company's mission as well?
Well, it happened because people asked for it, really, which is the short answer. I get invited to speak here and there as a result of working with clients, and they spread the word. And after every time I talk, someone will come up to me and ask me, where's my book? Can where do I find it? And I didn't have one, so I thought, well, I must have said something valuable here, and so I put in the effort to write it down, and that actually forced me, the process of writing it forced me to crystallize this and make it even more accessible. So I'm happy that I did it.
Yeah. I remember in 2015, I had written a book called Nice Guys Finish First. And what was interesting about it, nobody was asking for the book. I just needed it as a way to promote a speaking business that I had. So it kind of came in the reverse way. Nobody was asking me to speak. I was speaking, and they were asking for a book on the other side of it as well. So it is interesting. In Nice Guy Community, you can pick up a copy of John's book. It's called The Perfect Business: Master the 9 Systems to Get Control, Work Less, and Double Your Profit. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes so you can have access directly to the Amazon site, which will give you the book right there. So what is it that you find holds most business owners back? I mean, they're working hard, but they're not getting what they want out of their business. Is there a certain formula that you actually commonly see when you walk in or talk to somebody that is having this issue that you are the medication for?
Well, it's interesting you say that they're working hard, and that's always true. Hard work alone is not the cure. We all know our friends in business who work their tails off and never get anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's more than just that. And that's kind of counterintuitive, because that's what we're taught from a young age, right? You just work harder and good things will flow.
Right.
But if you're successful and you start to build to a certain point, if you don't have solid systems in place, your problems just start to multiply just from volume alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that happens. Second thing that happens is the complexity increases dramatically. So it's not just the problems caused by more work, it's the problems caused by the work getting more and more complex because there's more people. If you think about, let's say you have 10 people on your team, and you bring in one new person because you're growing and you figure, well, I need this work done. Well, it's not just a new relationship that you've created with that new employee. You've actually also created 10 new individual relationships to manage now.
Yeah.
So it gets exponential. So when all that happens, you're eventually although you might be great at putting out fires, you're just going to run out of time. So really what's holding people back is the lack of leverage. That's it. And you can get the leverage from really two places. It's great people and it's great systems. So that's what I see. I see that idea of we can only get so far when everything's in your own head.
So what is it that how do you create a good system? You have to go in as I guess as a consultant or a coach or someone and talk to them about how to create a better system, than they institute the system, or do they give you the framework for what they feel is a system and you help tweak it?
Well, I start with getting people to understand what it is they're trying to accomplish when they build a system. And I've broken it down to a really simple 4-step process. And to make it easy to remember, it all rhymes. It's prioritize, analyze, optimize, and institutionalize. Those are the 4 things. So prioritize is understanding what's causing pain to your customer and what's the impact if we fix it. All right. So we have to, identify where all the problems are, do an 80-20 analysis, because we understand it's probably 20% of these problems are causing 80%.
Oh my gosh. So true. I'm just thinking about my business and it's probably more like, 95-5, it's 5%
Sure.
is creating most of the headache in my business. So I got it. Okay, cool. I got that.
Yeah. And so then let's choose one of those and analyze it. And analyze it means simply take it apart and understand, how does it actually get done now? Not necessarily how should it be getting done, but how is it happening now? And that opens all kinds of opportunities in terms of improvement possibilities. And that's where the optimize comes in. That's where we document and we ask all kinds of very rudimentary questions about, why do we do this? Why? And then we've got something that we think can work. This is where most people fall down. They don't institutionalize it, right? It's one thing to get a team together and solve a problem, but to actually make that change happen in the organization is where a lot of it falls apart. We have this great idea. We decide we're going to do it. And then 2 months go by and we think, gee, what, did we solve this problem before? What happened? But didn't we? So that's a key part of this. And it's a never-ending cycle. It goes around and around. You reprioritize and then go through the analysis and optimization process again, and then institutionalize. So that's the framework that, it's as simple way as possible to approach, how do you tackle this?
So I think I got 3 of them. I might have missed one in there. Prioritize, optimize, institutionalize. And what was the one that I missed?
It's right after prioritize. We have to analyze. We have to understand how it's done now.
Sorry about that. I was right. I was typing feverishly, and I was trying to keep it quiet as I was doing it, and I missed that. I missed the second one. Of course, the analyzation of the problem is key as well. It's interesting because it seems like the more you grow, the more a company grows, the more opportunity there is for there to be challenges. It's not like staying stagnant is the problem. Staying stagnant actually might not be a bad idea. If you're comfortable where you are and you're making enough money and everything is fine, keep it there. It's when you start to grow that you experience the problems. Is that how you see it as well?
Sure. Yeah. And because of what we described before, if the foundation isn't solid, if you pour more work on top of it, the cracks are going to show and things are going to go wrong at a faster rate. So, if you're going to grow, these weaknesses are going to show themselves.
Where do you find that you get the most feedback from the solutions that you are providing to organizations? Is it in the analysis phase of your discovery? Is it in actually putting it into play? Where do you get the most out of what you're doing with your customer?
I think what it comes down to is some of the most fundamental things. That would be clarity, not just for the owner, but for the team. When the business owner is in the weeds, just managing the day-to-day sort of chaos, uh, it's easy for the team around him or her to get lost and start to freelance and not really understand what they're doing. It's when you really stand back and stop and say, what's really important to work on for each player on this team? And do they know that? And how do we know that they're doing a great job? And let's put some simple processes in place to show them the score of the game. Set the expectations properly. And so, although that sounds really kind of basic, it's really interesting how often those fundamentals get lost as the business grows.
Well, it's interesting about it, and I'm thinking about my team, and we have a small team. There's just six of us, soon to be seven of us on the team, and it everybody knows their responsibility, and I think that what they're responsible for. I think where it comes sometimes it becomes a challenge is that if one team member doesn't know what another team member is actually doing, the communication between those team members is almost non-existent. So everybody is working, especially when we're dealing with our environment today, which is everybody works remotely. So everybody's kind of in their own little vacuum on their own. We all don't know exactly what everybody else is doing. That's part of the problem for us, and I see that probably as a problem for most people, even in an office environment.
It absolutely is, and it's interesting that when we talk about bringing better communication into a team, there's a cultural side of things, and then there's the actual kind of systematic, the logistical, I'll call it, approach to things. And one of the objections I get about, let's set up a daily huddle, or let's what does the one-to-one look like? What does the weekly meeting look like? And a lot of times an owner will say, well, geez, I sit right next to them all day long. I talk back and forth all the time. Why do we need something structured and with a rhythm to it? And it's precisely because the subjects that are important, we talked earlier about working on instead of in the
Hmm.
business, those things don't just come up in the ordinary course of business. You have to set aside time. You have to ask the questions. You have to really check in on the fundamentals and check the scoreboard to do those things. So those are some of the remedies that if you don't put them in play, you're doomed to make the same mistake over and over again.
Once again, Nice Guy Community, John has a book. It's called The Perfect Business: Master the 9 Systems to Get Control, Work Less, and Double Your Profit. And we'll put a link in the show notes so you have access to John's book through Amazon. So what does it look like when someone starts to work with you? They have the symptoms. They know it's time to connect with somebody that's at a different level that they are, or somebody that is a little bit more, from an outsider's perspective, can look at the business and analyze it rationally without the investment of all of the time and energy that they have in having built the business and protective of that business. What does the process look like when somebody comes to work with you?
So it's a commitment of a little bit of time each week, right? It would be great if we could grind everything to a halt and just fix everything, but that's just not realistic. We have to sort of build this airplane while it's flying.
Hmm.
So it requires building a habit of setting aside a little bit of time each week to work on building the systems. And that means not just the owner, but engaging some members of the team too. You can't put this all on your shoulders, and the team has valuable input into this. So it's identifying what you want to do and then setting aside the time to actually start to work on it. And about managing individual projects over a short period of time, say 6 weeks or the quarter, and you just start setting them up and knocking them down one at a time. It's not about hitting any kind of home run. It's just a number of singles that pile up and
Yeah.
pile up and pile up over time that actually make the needle move.
It's funny. I had a conversation with a business coach probably about 3 hours ago before this interview, and it was a pretty hefty investment that he wanted me to make in the organization, and he was not promising overnight results. I just find that I tend to get in my own way, and I think that a lot of business owners, especially if you've bootstrapped your own company, if you've built it from the ground up as a solo guy, and now you're taking on team members, we are so protective of our business. And then we bring in somebody from the outside and they want to make changes. And oftentimes it's really hard. So I love the idea of not hitting a home run, but making, just hitting singles. Just keep hitting singles, man. You drive a lot of runs in if you just keep hitting singles over and over and over again. Do you find that a lot of clients are resistant to even making hitting singles?
No, in fact, singles is the more digestible way, because if you think about making change in the team, everyone's going to resist that for one reason or another,
Right,
right?
right.
It could, for a lot of reasons. It could be that they don't have the knowledge. It could be fear of a lot of things: fear of economic loss, fear of losing face, or anything. So there's a built-in resistance to overcome it, and so you have to bring to bear forces to overcome that. And like changing any habit, a little at a time is the way to approach this. Build some success, build some momentum, get some confidence in the team that, hey, yeah, we can fix this and it worked. okay, now I'm interested in doing it again.
Hmm.
So then we have some velocity behind it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So do you find that the business owner or the frontline person are more resistant to the change that you may be putting, even singles at a time? So there's still going to be some resistance to it. Who's your biggest challenger, and who's your biggest, proponent to what you got going on?
Well, usually it depends upon the owner's mindset. If the owner is open and it has gotten to the realization point, this idea that yeah, I have to do something, and they're willing to take that risk, then that's usually a sign of success. In any team, there's going to be a rock thrower. And
I
again,
love how you
and you
say it.
never
Yeah,
you
yeah.
never know who it's going to be, but there's always going to be. Well, they might know, but I don't. So there's always someone who's going to be like, yeah, this, been there, done that. Um, and then you got some tough decisions to make. You can try to get them on the side of virtue, or in some cases, people just aren't going to develop at the same rate that the business is going to develop, and then you have some tough choices to make.
It's interesting. I was thinking about a client of mine, and I do some consulting from a customer service perspective as well. And the owner of the company, who will be nameless in this particular example here, because I don't know if he listens to the show or not, but I certainly don't want to call him to the carpet here. But I would say his entire team is totally into being able to make and want to make the change. But he rules his entire team through intimidation. So the challenge is that they want to make the change, and I can see it and I can feel it when I go in there. But he is so much a micromanager and intimidating. It makes it really hard, and I'm sure you run into that all the time.
Yeah, and I avoid those people.
That's probably, yeah. I know. You get to pick your clients, right? Sometimes you get to pick your clients really hard. You almost have to have an agreement with them going into the organization. And again, there's many people in our community are consultants on their own. So how do you decide, on something like that? Take off your author hat for a second, put on your consultant to a consultant hat and say, how do you decide who are the good clients for you and who do you kind of leave on the shelf there and let them fix their own problems or wallow in their own stuff?
That's a great question, and it's a key to any consultant's, I think, success in the long run. And I've boiled it down to one simple question: are you coachable?
Yeah.
And I find that generally people answer that honestly. And you can probe around that and really test that a little bit. But that's the thing. If someone does what they say they're going to do, I can take them anywhere.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And also I have to get permission to stick the knife in and turn it sometimes, because that's important, because some people don't have the self-awareness, like the person you might have just been describing.
Right. Right.
They may not know they're that way, and who knows of their potential to change, but and you won't know until you hit them over the head and enlighten them on that fact. Then you'll
Yeah.
find out.
Yeah. My dad always used to call it, you need an upfront contract with them, because you really do have to have the ability to kind of get in their face when they say, hey, this is not, I can't do it this way. And you have to say, well, you need to do it this way. Remember, we had this contract, which is really hard. I think in this particular case, the guy that I'm talking about, I think he realizes that he's that way and he kind of laughs about it. And I keep thinking, great, I appreciate and respect the fact that you're laughing about it. But in the meantime, you have a company that could be going so much further than it is. You're getting in your own company's way. And the times that he goes on vacation are actually the best times for the company, because now they have the ability to kind of work the system the way that they want to while he's out of town or away on extended stay. Yeah. Yeah. My dad always used to say also, you got to act like you're independently wealthy and don't need the business. Because for a lot of consultants out there, any consulting job is a good consulting job. And I would argue the fact that I don't want a client that's going to be a pain in the ass. You know what I mean?
No, life is too short.
I know.
Life
I
is too
agree.
short, and
I,
the time that they're taking up is taking you away from helping someone else who could do a lot better. So
Yeah. So nice guy community, just keep in mind that not everyone is your client, and you don't want to have, and it's okay to fire a client too if they're not doing what you need them to do in order to step up. And they're not going to be a good proponent for your business if they're not, taking advantage of all of the magic that you have in your wand. So I love that. So, hey, so John, do me a favor, take off your author hat for a second and put on your business owner hat for a moment. What's some of the stuff that you're still working on in your business, and create a little relatability to my community so that everybody can see, hey, I'm not this guy up in the ivory tower. I'm actually a guy working on the same stuff that you're working on too. What is some of the stuff that you are working on with your business?
So I think it's the same thing that everyone else is, and that is mindset, and that is keeping the disciplines up of maintaining a positive outlook and believing in the next step is the right step. I think that's key to maintaining your sort of point of view,
Hmm.
believing in your brand promise, believing in your value proposition. And the way I do that is I try to seek out feedback. I ask, what do you like? What do you don't like? Am I serving you well? That's one of the tools that I use to try to do that. Now, it's up and down, right? There are always setbacks. There's always problems. Unexpected things happen, but that's really, I think, the biggest challenge for me and for, I would say, most people who decide to take on the risk of business ownership, who create teams, who depend on them for success and for their livelihoods. It's a big burden that we take on.
Agreed. Agreed. I love it. Great message. And I appreciate you being on the show today, John. And I'm looking forward to getting some real positive feedback from those in my community who have read the book and provide it through our, whether it's through email or through the comment section on the podcast notes, or however you reach out to me. Let me know that you have read John's book and that you're enjoying it. Or if you have something to say about it, please let us know. And I'd love to get your comments right here on the air with us. Thanks for being on the show today, John.
Thanks so much for having me, Doug. It's been a pleasure.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to John Sheridan. All of his information, including access to his book, The Perfect Business Master, the 9 Systems to Get Control, Work Less, and Double Your Profit, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.